Well, look who's here.
When the action is too rough for one man, send for Savano's 7.
First of all, it's no ordinary cleanup job. Once we take out one of those bananas, we gotta wipe out the rest of them in 30 minutes. If we're gonna get this thing done, we're gonna get it done quick.
Savano's 7. The Playmate. The Black Belt. The Dragster. The Comic. The Professor. The Indian. The Cowboy. 7. Death is their way of life. 7.
Did you grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hello and welcome, everybody. It's not Birdman hosting this time. It is Alex, the producer. He's taken a week off, and he'll be back when we return to cover Hard Ticket to Hawaii and Picasso Trigger. But we did mention last week that on the next Loose Cannon, we were going to be talking originally those, but with the bonus inclusion of the movie 7, which is, I guess, Proto Sidaris. And because Birdman wanted to talk Hard Ticket with us next week, we're going to talk 7 as a bit of an introduction, as well as talk about a strange British film that I had never heard of before called Dream Demon. And with me along for the ride is the other member of the Loose Cannon team,
Aaron Pollyea. How's it going?
Pretty good here. How about you?
Doing okay. After a day of watching some strange things.
Yeah, indeed. So strangely, that's probably the best way to put it. Now, we had been talking at length about the Andy Sidaris movies and doing research, figuring out previous films he had done.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I discovered that, oh, hey, there is a remastered, HD edition of 7. His I guess, first directorial, I guess a big budget feature, in quotes, big budget being big for him.
Yeah, it actually had some money behind it. It wasn't his own production company. He was just doing it as the director rather than the producer.
Yeah. Whereas you could see he had retooled some ideas from previous projects and things that he eventually would evolve into being his unique style in his own production company. Like it came out roughly, 6-7 years or so before he started his main franchise.
Yeah, it came out in 1979, and Malibu Express came out in 1985, so 6 years.
Yeah, and there is a distinct difference in tone and feel. Music-wise, it feels like you're watching Streets of San Francisco or Kojak or something from the era.
Yeah,
which I kind of liked. I liked the feel. It's almost like it almost had like a blaxploitation feel without being blaxploitation.
See, what I thought was weird about how it felt was that after watching all of the Andy Sidaris stuff that's in the 80s and 90s, coming back to this, it felt really strange seeing Andy Sidaris tropes and style, but through the 1970s lens. So it was familiar yet not. So it was kind of in this weird uncanny valley of Andy Sidaris, so to speak.
Yeah, there's elements that make you go like, that's definitely him. But then there's parts of it where you're like, is it a copycat or is it? But all I can say is it's proto Sidaris.
Yeah, it's him trying to figure out his way. And I think if this was like the first film that you had ever seen by him, you would love. Well, I mean, you'd go, okay. If you liked it, you would go on to watch his other things, and you wouldn't really see. You would see the evolution, but it wouldn't feel as jarring as it did for us. Well, at least for me, watching the later stuff and then coming back to this like first work.
Well, and we should probably get into that. There's a couple faces here that might be familiar to you, both for his films and both for actually, unlike a lot of his other films, actors having careers outside of his films. The first one that was noticeable to me was Martin Kove, who you'd probably know best for being the evil karate teacher in Karate Kid, or playing one of the dumb but good-meaning police officers in Cagney and Lacey.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like early for him. Still was a big bulky meathead in it and played a pretty corrupt police officer.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. One other guy I was looking at, I had to double check, but I had to do a double check. I might be right, might be wrong. I thought the one guy at the beginning was the guy from Weekend at Bernie's. It is the senator. The senator is Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, that's crazy. See, I recognize people that are in later Andy Sidaris films.
Okay, I noticed the weird character. I noticed like that dead body looks familiar.
Well, the guy that plays the professor in this, Richard Lepore, he appears in tons of Andy Sidaris films. He appeared in Hard Ticket to Hawaii. He's the dispatcher.
Okay.
The plane's out. He's also in Picasso Trigger, replaying this role. He's actually playing the same character in Picasso Trigger, the professor. So I recognized him, and that's fun. I think he was the big one that I saw that was in other Andy Sidaris films. Now I'm totally blanking on the other people that I took note of. But
you think of this skateboard guy?
Skateboard guy was definitely in it. That's right, skateboard guy. He appears on Hard Ticket to Hawaii as skateboard guy. But yeah. I mean, there's people that you would recognize from Andy Sidaris films in this.
And the lead actor, William Smith, who played Drew Savano, it was like, I'm like, oh, did they try to get Charles Bronson, but they couldn't? So they just went with somebody who looked a bit like Charles Bronson and talked a bit like him?
I mean, I'm glad they didn't get Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson probably would have just not had the kind of energy that they needed for this film. No.
Oh, definitely. But it was like, I could see Sidaris being like, let's get Charles Bronson. Like, oh, he costs money. Oh, let's get Frank Bronson.
So this film felt a lot like Ocean's 11 as well.
Ocean's 11, if the entire goal was to kill people.
Yeah, and that's what made it kind of strange. I think there was a really kind of cool idea that they had where every time they introduced another one of the good guy killers that they're hiring to murder some of these villains, some of the criminals, the criminal's rap sheet gets typed out on a typewriter really fast.
Oh, yeah, and very reminiscent of the opening credits to... was it Malibu Express that used the computer, but the whole I don't think it's an homage to it, but it has that sort of feel of the Stephen J. Cannell productions where at the end it would always show him typing and throwing away a piece of paper.
Yeah, and then like the changes between the days to show like, hey, look, time is passing. It's also written out on a typewriter, so it kind of gives a noir-ish feel as well. I don't know. There's lots of ideas in this film. I don't know if all of them work together, but individually they're perfectly fine.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Like,
there's just lots of different weird things that are happening. I don't know if they all come together like his other films do, but individually, when you look at them, you're like, oh yeah, okay, this typewriter stuff is kind of noirish. I like that. You still have the kind of crazy Ocean's 11 plot where you're hiring all these killers to go out and kill more killers, and that's kind of fun. There's your typical Andy Sidaris nudity all through the film, and there's some really funny one-liners that I felt were pretty typical Andy Sidaris, like the end line, "Let's go out and get our helmets polished and get out of this business."
Yeah, and then with a high five.
Yeah, high five, like, hey. And then there's the blonde girl at the party. "I can't seem to use this vibrator correctly, or vibrator right." Well, why not? "It keeps chipping my teeth." Oh my god! Like,
for the 70s, like, and it wasn't a X-rated film. Just,
no. All there was toplessness in it, and it was pretty tame. The professor has a blow-up doll that explodes out of his freaking out of his briefcase when he's in like the TSA line, and I'm like, I remember pre 9/11 and how much crap you could get through the TSA overseas. I don't even know if they would have cared there was a blow-up doll in this guy's briefcase. It's not like he had a weapon in there, because they show later on the weapon that he's using, and it's this huge rocket launcher. There's no
which by the way, is he the one that used the remote controlled rocket?
Yeah.
Which blows somebody up like a mile or two away. He doesn't even look, and he's just like, got him, and then packs up.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, it's like a homing rocket, as long as he puts in like the exact location that somebody's going to be at the exact time.
Well, and it doesn't blow up. It harpoons the guy.
And it goes through another guy. Like the first time that they kill him, there's
yeah,
2 people that it basically just goes straight through and blows blood everywhere.
Yeah, and yet there's no way he could have, because there was no explosion. There's no indication that it was, there. He just intrinsically knows it worked and walks away.
Yeah. And then he does it later to another person.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you didn't really have it pre-planned where this guy was. Like, you made this big deal of saying that you had to figure out exactly where somebody was going to be, and it would home in.
And obviously the whole 7 is it's based around assassinating a cabal of evil people by using equally deadly assassins who happen to just be good guy assassins.
Yeah, and they seem to, like, when they're introducing them, most of them seem to have gone straight in their lives. Like, they're not just out there causing problems. They're not out there killing people for hire at all anymore. But hey, they'll all come out of retirement for one reason or another to kill that guy.
And I did find it funny that one guy is doing a really bad stand-up routine, and that's his cover.
Oh my god, that was really cringy.
And yet they're like sitting there like not really laughing, just staring like it's okay. And then it's just like he finally gets the notification it's time to kill people, and I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, it was cringy. I would assume that it was cringy in 1979, and it was a stand-up act about race. Let's put it that way.
1979, we had like Pryor in his prime. You also had Carlin, all these other guys that were like, you had people that would go on to have huge careers later on. Like that was like comedy that wouldn't have been funny 20 years earlier than that.
Yeah. I don't know. I was cringing the entire time.
Yeah.
I was thinking, boy, if anybody watched this without knowing like the year that it was made, and I mean, it was an exploitation film. Like yeah. I almost feel like the comedy behind it was, hey, let's make the comedy really bad. Yeah, I assumed it was purposeful, making it that cringy and awful. But still, it was cringy and awful, and it made me feel bad. And I was glad when the guns came out.
Yeah. Then there's probably the funniest bad, for lack of a better term, like non-martial artists trying to do martial arts, pretending that they're good at it in this movie.
Yeah.
The fight that some of the people have, they're so slow moving, but it's almost like watching Captain Kirk do it.
Yeah.
But I'm laughing my head off the whole time. We do have some kills that were eventually recycled and reused. Not the footage itself, but the exact same kills in later films, like the skateboarder guy. They're
building.
Yeah, and the obvious dummy falling through the air.
Yeah.
there was a pretty good effect, at the beginning of the film when the undercover agents are getting killed, and the one guy doing the had like the fire the fire sticks, fire lances, or whatever you want to call them, fire spears.
Death by
And
spear,
yeah, he throws one at the ground, which is all part of the show, and he throws the second one right into a guy, and it's on fire. Like you couldn't fake that, and it didn't look hokey.
No, it
either.
looked really good.
Yeah, like it's the kind of thing where had that film been made in like Italy or somewhere, it would have been like, did they really kill a guy for the movie?
Yeah, or
like, so
filmed in the Philippines. Oh man, yeah, that
Yeah.
I'm concerned. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's if you film the Philippines, or you find out it's like, oh, it was filmed in India and they just used prisoners as like the cast. Like that's how realistic it looked for such a low budget.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I wrote that down as like an amazing death.
It would have been acceptable in a James Bond movie of the era.
Oh, it would have been acceptable in a James Bond movie up until I would say the late 80s. In fact, that's how good it looked.
Yeah, like that would have been fine until Timothy Dalton came on.
Yeah.
So in fact, it probably looked better than some of the Roger Moore deaths. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, like it's. I feel like we're just saying the different deaths, but that's pretty much what the film is. The first half is introducing all the people that they're going to have to kill, all the people they're going to have to recruit, finding out ways how they're going to plan out this way to kill everybody and sync it up together because they want to execute the plan pretty much at the same time.
Yeah,
and then you see the results. There is one standout villain. It was what did he go by? He was the drug dealer, the foreigner. They called him.
The Japanese guy that died in the golf course.
That was good. But I'm trying to think. What's the other guy?
That was a really good explosion. Or you're talking about
the hermit,
villain-ish guy, the German, who ends up trying to rape one of the girls, and
yes,
yeah, she blows him up with C4 to his crotch.
Yes,
like, holy crap.
And he was the one that was introduced. Like they were in there figuring out what their weaknesses are, and his weakness was women. And it was the most hilarious like setup where they're just like showing what his hobbies are. Let's say.
Yeah, and it's like it's weird. It's good though. But I like the Japanese guy that was on the golf course, and one of our heroes, quote unquote, is on a hang glider and drops like a kilo of C4 on top of like a outdoor bathroom, like an outhouse that he goes into on the golf course. And it's just like this colossal explosion that I'm shocked that they were allowed to do. Because it's clear they are on a golf course in Hawaii.
They probably weren't allowed, in quotes, to do it.
But that was a pretty sizable explosion. Like, the debris easily went up hundreds of feet. It was, it was good.
Yeah, it's... If anybody has seen the other films in the Andy Sidaris like collection, the best way to describe this, if you're not getting what we're saying, is take any of those films, especially the early to mid 3 or 4 of them, and then mix it with 70s cop music, with the clothes of the time, with jive talk. A lot of it.
Yeah,
and then you get 7.
And some oddly placed racist kind of stuff. Not like purposely. It's not like it is. How do I want to say it? Aggressive with it. It's just like casual stuff that you would normally find in any 70s film. But
yeah, like there was not. They were not looking to purposely put it in. It just was sort of kind of the dialogue of the time of the type of films.
Yeah, and so you have to judge it on the time, the era that it was made. But like I said, the stand-up thing made me cringe because there was race stuff in that, and it was bad.
When I was watching it, I was just thinking, like, if it was a group of people here, we would have just fast-forwarded through.
Oh yeah. Like if I was watching that with my wife, I would have just gone, okay, I'm sure there's a point in here for my B-movie scale, but I don't want to watch anymore. This is just making me grit my teeth. Yeah, so it's been put out not by Mill Creek. It's actually, I think it's Kino Lorber has the rights to it, which is a shame. I was hoping they'd have it all together, but it is
it's like $20 to pick up on Blu-ray. If you're already a fan of all of his other work, it's probably worth picking up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the place you want to start with.
No, I wouldn't. I would not recommend people to start with this as their Andy Sidaris film.
Go with, I'd say, the first 4 in his main franchise, and then maybe jump in here.
Yeah, definitely start with Malibu Express and Hard Ticket to Hawaii, and then kind of go back maybe after that.
Actually, yeah, you're right. This could be like your 3rd or 4th one you're introduced to with him.
I mean, regardless, don't start with this. Have a couple under your belt at the very least. Otherwise,
yeah, and again, you'll also appreciate it once you've seen those films, and then you see where some of the scenes originated from.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably going to do it for this. I know that from what I can see, his wife Arlene did an interview for this release, which we didn't have access to see, but it's interesting. Like I wonder if they're going to release his earliest film, which I believe the entire plot was reworked into Malibu Express.
I'm happy to see it.
It's just, as far as I know, it has never had a home video release. So
I'm sure Arlene has it somewhere in her
there's probably like even an 8mm copy somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of just our take on that. I know Birdman said he's going to watch it at some point. I think he'll get a kick out of it just from the even more retro aspect to it. But like, there's definitely scenes in there that you're going to remember.
Oh yeah, for sure. The silly string fight with the professor and the waitress.
Yeah,
that was weird. That's going to stick with me. I don't know why. It's just so weird. Yeah.
And finally, there are, looking at some of the trivia for it, there are other connections, like you said. There is a poster to the film, apparently in Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
Oh yeah, it's one of the posters on the wall. Yeah.
Okay, and also, I don't know the validity of this, but it's referenced a few points here. It's saying that when they made Raiders of the Lost Ark, they actually recreated a scene or two from this.
Yeah, the whole guy with a sword getting shot. Yeah, that definitely happened in 7, way before Raiders of the Lost Ark, for sure.
And so they can say all they want that, for whatever reason, Harrison Ford just, improvised it, but it looks oddly the same.
And it's definitely from before Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, I mean, he probably did improvise it, but it was on film by Andy Sidaris.
Yeah. So that's kind of neat. And there's a whole bunch of, apparently there's a second version of this film, which was missing 11 minutes edited for TV, and we can already pretty much tell what that was.
Oh, yeah. Just any scenes with topless women, yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they even cut some of the stand-up stuff for television.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, moving into the sort of, I guess, the main discussion here, we had a chance to check out or experience Arrow Video's Dream Demon, which is a British film. Experience is probably the best word.
Yeah, I think I described it right before we started recording as the most breakneck, boring movie that I've watched. Like, it seems like it's constantly moving, that there's always something happening on the screen, and there is. But it just kind of that motion seems to meander, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't seem to be in one direction or another.
It's a very British feel to it too. Like, it has a dreamy sort of, that hazy, not Vaseline on the screen, but that sort of very soft look. Yeah, but at the same time, it's not just soft. The colors are very saturated.
It's Neverwhere to me. Like, it reminds me a lot of Neverwhere. Which,
I mean, I honestly wish it reminded me more of Neverwhere.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it as a watch. I think if you're a British horror fan, you probably want it. But it was certainly one of the most unique and different films. Like you said, it always felt like something was going to happen, and then it just sort of didn't.
Or it did, just not in a interesting way.
Yeah, like it starts out rather surprising.
Yeah, it's really shocking. So we should talk about the main actress. It's
sure
Gemma Redgrave's first movie, if I am not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, because she was on like a TV series in one episode beforehand, and at least I know her as she's actually on the new Doctor Who. She plays Kate Lethbridge Stewart, the daughter
Oh, that's right.
of the Brigadier in the new series, and she's appeared in a few episodes, and that's where I knew her from, and I didn't know that was her up until the movie started, and I go, she looks really familiar. I had to look it up. Oh, okay, because it's introducing Gemma Redgrave, and she is a fantastic actress.
Yeah, I would like, again, for a first feature, a first leading role for sure. She was really good.
Yeah, very good. And the movie starts crazy. It basically starts writing a check that the rest of the movie can't cash.
Yeah.
Go ahead and describe it.
Okay.
If you'd rather have me do it, I can. I'm sure.
It's Gemma's character Diana is preparing to get married.
Yeah.
And a argument takes place, and you can't tell whether or not it's at this point if it's the dream world or real or if it's imaginary. And within the fight, she ends up destroying the head of her fiance.
Yeah. See, she basically said, "I can't marry you. I'm sorry. There's reasons." And he goes, "You slut," and smacks the hell out of her. And I was like, "Whoa," because it was a pretty strong looking slap. And then she goes, "You bastard," smacks him back, and his head blows clean off in a giant geyser of Monty Python-esque blood.
Yeah, she just gets covered, and everybody looks at her, and she like goes outside, and the press is there, and then she wakes up
covered in gore. And I was like, "Oh my god, this movie is going to be amazing because this is insane."
And then it ends up spiraling into a haunted house movie.
Yeah, it wasn't
and not the best. It was there are parts of this film, like you said, that are very fast and very, spine tingly, and then it gets very drawn out and very classical British horror where it's very slow moving. So it had an issue with pacing, as probably the biggest complaint I had about it, but it had interesting ideas. Some of the other supporting cast I had seen before, Timothy Spall as one of the, I guess, press, but also demon.
Yeah, like I think that most of the people that are in this that are villains or demons are real people, but they just kind of get sucked into this parallel hell type haunted house and become demons. But yeah, Timothy Spall's in this,
and who I think people my age probably know most from Harry Potter, but he's been in tons of things.
Yeah, he's been in tons of things. And then like he had a partner who's played by Jimmy Nail. Like that's
right.
A pseudonym, but he's been.
James Michael Aloysius Bradford.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of things, but none that I've really seen. I thought they both did a pretty good job in this as demons, and you notice that like Jimmy Nail had on makeup, like a strange kind of face mask through the latter half of it. And I thought that actually lent a really kind of eerie look to him. I thought that really worked well.
And Timothy Spall's character was sort of a glutton demon.
Yeah, and so he ate like disgusting food, but you don't see him very much. It's a strange movie, and it's very British because whenever something really strange happens, like there's a point in it where Gemma Redgrave's Diana sees like the wall cracking and bleeding, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty good. Something's going to really happen, and she's kind of freaking out, and she runs outside to her friend that she's met, Jenny, and she looks panicked, but all of a sudden it becomes oh so British because she like completely calmly says something strange has just happened in the house. And it's like, you just saw the wall cracking and bleeding and gushing blood, and completely like, okay, you're breathing a little hard, but something strange has just happened inside the house.
I'm sorry to have inconvenienced you, but
Yeah,
the world is ending behind us. Very sorry.
yeah, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria, completely calmly though. Um, and then she punches through a guy's head.
Which was good.
Well, that was a fantastic effect. Like,
Yeah.
again, there's moments in this film that are like, whoa, they're exciting. The gags are really good. The special effects can be really good, and then it gets kind of dreamy and out of focus and aimless for a little bit. And
Yeah.
that's cool.
There's the B plot of the like. Yes, there's demons, but there's also a haunting going on.
Yeah, maybe they're metaphorical demons, like the demons of the past, because the other character, Jenny, she used to live in this house when she was very young. And
Yeah, and
adopted by American parents and taken away, but she doesn't like remember any of her youth.
yeah, and it's told sort of, but it almost feels like. So her father was an artist in quotes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, he's making like angel sculptures and basing them on her likeness, but to get the likeness, she doesn't want to be a part of it, so he ties her up, like basically crucifies her to the marble so that he can use it as a reference, and then sets the place on fire in the past.
Yeah, but she's okay.
And
Somehow
she's fine. Yeah, she's somehow fine, but at the same time, it's like I thought maybe he was haunting the place, but he's not. It's like her childhood pain is haunting the house.
Yeah, because the ghost, quote unquote, that Diana is seeing is her younger self.
Yeah,
Wanting to be saved, but
and there's like a creepy, like wooden voodoo doll Barbie.
yeah, that gets like a weird finger that comes out of its eye or something.
I thought it was a maggot, or it looked like a maggot or a pinky finger.
Yeah, it was way too big to be a maggot. I thought that at first too, and I'm like, oh man, I hope they're not going all like, hentai with this. And
Exactly. Like you never quite know, but it's British, so probably not.
Yeah, probably not. And then I'm like, no, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be very reserved. And yeah, she just kind of tosses this doll away.
A lot of good ideas. Weird how they executed them. It was 2 million British pounds, so that's like 3 million US, 4 million Canadian budget. You can see most of the money went to the few effects they put in.
Yeah. I mean, it's on screen. You see the money on screen. You do.
Yeah. Interesting. Not for everybody for sure. If you're a fan of British horror, you probably will like it. It was worth watching. I don't know how much it would be worth unless you're a big horror fan or a big horror collector to pick up. That being said, the Blu-ray set for it has a treasure trove of new interviews that were recorded for it, a whole bunch of other special features. Arrow puts out a lot of new produced features for all their films, and it's been remastered. It looks good for what it is, but you can tell like this is probably the best it's ever going to look.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I would say it's worth watching. I enjoyed watching it. I was confused most of the time, but I mean, it was worth watching because it's so unique and weird. If you are a fan of British horror, it's definitely worth getting. I'd say if you're a fan of Gemma Redgrave, definitely you'd want to get this because this is her first movie. She's only 23 when she's in this.
Like there are 7 new interviews with the cast and crew produced for this.
Wow.
So
this is a thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think it launched a lot of careers for these people.
Yeah.
So if you're, again, the best way to look at it is there's obviously a YouTube trailer for it if you're on the fence, but if you like, I'm trying to think what's a good example. Pretty much any British horror from the 70s or 80s has that sort of pacing for most of it. It's just there are certain parts here that are faster than that, so it sort of keeps you on your feet. It's off-putting a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. It was worth watching. It's worth watching, and I'm not a huge British horror person, so I mean, if you are a big British horror person, you're probably going to like it a lot more than me.
Well, and when just before we wrap up, when I was gonna watch this, I popped it in, and I was thinking maybe somebody else will want to watch this as well and talk about it. And when I saw the head explode at the beginning, I went, let's see what Aaron says. So I had no idea. I was going in blind before that.
Yeah,
so
I'm glad I watched it. I mean, it's something that I normally wouldn't have gone after before, and I'm happy to have something like that.
So how many points on your scale or in your point system did Seven and Dream Demon get?
Okay, so believe it or not, 7 is probably the lowest points of any Andy Sidaris film. It's only 13, 7 of which are from nudity. So yes, it's kind of it clearly is an Andy Sidaris film that it has so much nudity. And then Dream Demon, it only has 6 points. So a low point total doesn't necessarily mean a bad movie. It just means that it's not as memorable as those that have tons of points.
So it's vaguely somewhere between a mainstream release and what you would consider to be the tropes of a B movie.
Yeah, it's close to being a mainstream movie. I can rate regular movies and often get points on my scale, have no doubt. And it's somewhere usually between 6 and 10.
Well, like Silence of the Lambs would be something where you would get points.
Yeah, you would.
But it's a mainstream big budget movie.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, so I mean, it's not like it has tons of B movie cred under its belt, but it is an interesting movie.
So yeah, that's I'll make sure that when I post the show that I can put links up if anybody wants to check either of these out. But I think that's going to do it for this week. When we come back, we will be really digging into the meat and potatoes of Andy Sidaris' movies, the true start to at least the internet famous Hard Ticket to Hawaii and Picasso Trigger. I personally can't wait because I've seen Hard Ticket. I know Michael hasn't. He's only seen the bits and pieces. And Picasso Trigger I saw once years ago. So it's time for me to do, a full back-to-back, double feature over the weekend.
Oh, see, I've obviously seen Hard Ticket and Picasso Trigger many, many times. I've actually seen all of the movies now many times. So I'm obviously a big fan.
I was racking my brain, and I think I've seen Hard Ticket about 7 or 8 times, which is the most. And then I've seen every other one, bits and pieces here and there. I've seen a couple of them all the way through. And I Picasso Trigger, I might have seen a couple times. It's just, I think when I start watching it, it'll, flip back into my memory whether or not I've seen certain scenes or not.
Oh yeah.
And that's going to do it for the show. So we'll be back next week. And if anybody has feedback for the show, if you want to suggest, even in some cases, if there's a weird B movie that you love, that you've seen, that you haven't heard anybody else talk about, or you think that we might think is neat to check out and sort of give our critiques to, let us know. Feedback at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can find us on all the socials out there at ThisWeekInGeek. And for Aaron and myself, I guess make sure that you can tell the difference between reality and a dream, and also be good, or the assassins are going to come get you, and you might get hit with a rocket from a couple miles away. So that's going to do it. Talk to everybody later.
Well, that's our show. All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at thisweekingeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at thisweekingeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.
Tell you what we're gonna do. Let's get our helmets polished.